It's Tuesday, and once again it's time for the news from TSN. During the night of November 18th, the enemy attacked Ukraine with 4 Iskander-M ballistic missiles and 114 drones. 101 drones were shot down or neutralized. There were recorded impacts from 4 missiles and 13 attack UAVs at 15 locations, as well as the fall of downed drones or their debris at 2 sites. The Pokrovsk direction remains the hottest sector of the front. There, the defense forces repelled 40 attacks, but the General Staff notes that the number of combat engagements has significantly decreased. Next is the Kostiantynivka sector, where the occupiers carried out 20 assaults. Active combat operations are also ongoing in the Oleksandrivka, Lyman, Sloviansk and Huliaipol directions, where the Russians launched attacks 9 to 10 times. Overall, the spokesperson for the General Staff, Andriy Smyan, reports that in the past day there were more than 1,500 combat clashes and 3 missile strikes. There were also 61 airstrikes, nearly 4,500 shellings, and in addition, the Kremlin deployed over 5,000 kamikaze drones.
Ukrainian defenders reduced the enemy army by 960 soldiers, struck 3 areas where enemy personnel, weapons and military equipment were concentrated, neutralized 13 artillery systems, multiple rocket launchers, an air defense system, and 43 units of the occupiers' automotive equipment.
In the Kharkiv region, the Russians killed a 17-year-old girl, a Ukrainian boxing champion. She suffered severe injuries while running to the basement during a missile attack on the city of Berestyn. The doctors were unable to save her. 7 more people, including a minor boy, were taken to the hospital. 2 women also received assistance on the spot due to an acute stress reaction. There was also a victim in the village of Kotivka. There, a drone exploded on private property. 2 people were killed in Horodnia in the Chernihiv region. At midnight, the occupiers attacked the city with strike drones. The bodies of 2 women were found in the destroyed homes. There was also a strike on a non-operational enterprise. Fires raged. In the Kherson region, a man from Novorossiysk died in the hospital after a drone dropped an explosive on him. He had been hospitalized the day before with severe injuries. 5 more people, including a child, were injured today as a result of the shelling. All districts of Kherson are without power, trolleybuses are not running, and there are also water supply disruptions. 2 people were injured in Donetsk region. In Kindrativka, a drone attacked a civilian car in the afternoon. The driver was hospitalized and another person was injured in Kramatorsk. There are also 2 injured in Dnipro. The city endured a massive drone attack last night. Air defenders shot down 33 drones, but there were also hits. Civilian facilities and residential buildings became targets for the Russians. Television centers, a railway depot, and stores caught fire in large-scale blazes. The fire on the vessel in the port of Izmail, which broke out after yesterday's Russian drone strike, has been extinguished, and in the Romanian commune of Citalchioi, people were allowed to return home after the evacuation. Meanwhile, near the village of Plauru, which is located just 200 meters from the site of the incident, the evacuation order remains in effect for now. The day before, in Izmail, Odessa region, a Russian drone struck a vessel flying the Turkish flag during a massive nighttime attack. The ship was carrying about 4,000 tons of liquefied gas. The explosion could have caused destruction on both the Romanian and Ukrainian sides of the border. However, in addition, due to the attack, more than 30,000 families in the Izmail district were left without electricity. Ukraine's Minister of Foreign Affairs stated that this incident demonstrates the urgent need to increase pressure on the Kremlin to end the war. The brutal escalation of terror by Russia threatens not only Ukraine but also our neighbors, the diplomat wrote on social media. Follow me, do as I do. This is the motto of sergeants, and today Ukraine celebrates their professional holiday. The Day of the Armed Forces Sergeant was established back in 2019. Universal Soldiers. That's another name for sergeants because they not only carry out combat missions on the front line but can also take command. They are also responsible for providing for the soldier and for their training. Currently, the Sergeant Corps of the Armed Forces of Ukraine numbers over 250,000 sergeants and warrant officers from various branches and types of troops. The TSN film crew visited a training center and saw firsthand how the sergeants themselves are trained.
They teach how to save lives, how to move, how to survive, both in theory and in practice. In
most cases, we adopt the experience of our Western partners when it comes to battle planning. As for the direct conduct of battle and the relevance of training, we draw on our interaction with combat units.
Sergeant's Day. On November 18th, the country celebrates it for the 6th year in a row. The corresponding presidential decree was signed in 2019. How are the sergeants trained and where do they study? To find out, we visited the air assault forces.
In our center, Various foreign delegations often visit us. For example, recently we had the Orbital delegation, which is from the UK. The day before, a Lithuanian delegation visited, headed by the Chief Sergeant of the NATO School and the Chief Sergeant of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. This is
the 204th Training Center. Sergeants here are trained under two programs, basic level instructor and intermediate level leadership course.
The training of a platoon sergeant and a company sergeant takes place in 3 modules. Accordingly, the first module is based on the leadership qualities of the sergeant. The second module is about the sergeant as a leader and also as a mentor. That is, it's the instructor module. This is where sergeants practice giving combat orders.
At this center, they emphasize that all their sergeants have combat experience and come to study based on recommendations from their commanders.
if a service member has proven themselves, demonstrated leadership qualities, shown bravery, and led others, and the commander observes that this person can manage personnel, takes an interest, and most likely cares about their lives, then this service member needs to continue growing because people are following them. So the start of their sergeant career begins with the basic level leadership course. And
this is already the training battalion for sergeant training of the 199th Training Unit of the Air Assault Forces. Here you can take an advanced qualification course in firearms and tactical training which lasts 30 days.
We are at the military shooting range, where the instructor course in firearms and tactical training is taking place. People come to us already with a foundation, with their own training. They are prepared, but in this course they improve and acquire skills in firearms. Both training. These are individual skills. The shooter's stance, their shooting position, so that in the future they can effectively train their own personnel.
Here, assault squad commanders can also act as instructors and teach each other. After all, they are honing their instructional skills. A sergeant must both train and give orders to their
subordinates. The skills involve overall management as well as training. This session is specifically about training personnel. In other words, they teach, and the goal is to teach them how to present material correctly, that is, to communicate properly and prepare for a given topic. This is, let's say, the initial truly basic level of instructorship.
This course lasts 33 days. Overall, the instructors emphasize that in addition to real combat experience, they also focus on the demands of war, regularly adapting their program to the realities of what is needed at the front. Vlad Bloshchinsky, Roman Repa, TSN1+, United News Marathon.
The Verkhovna Rada closed today's session and was unable to dismiss 2 ministers. In Justice, Herman Galushchenko, and in Energy, Svetlana Hrynchuk. The opposition blocked the podium. Let me remind you, today the parliament was supposed to consider the resignation statements of 2 ministers who were implicated in the Nabu corruption investigation, Operation Midas. And our TSN correspondent Ihor Bondarenko is currently near the Verkhovna Rada and knows more details. Ihor, if I understand correctly, there will be no ministerial resignations today. Tell me more about why and what happens next.
Greetings, Saints. Yes, indeed, the meeting was suspended, or rather the chairman announced a break in the meeting. And Ruslan Stefanchuk invited the leaders of the groups and factions to his office in order to carefully deliberate how to resolve and address this corruption political crisis. And basically, there were only 2 issues on the agenda today. These are 2 draft resolutions on the dismissal, as was announced, of 2 ministers. Yulia Svirodenko was supposed to present them. However, at the beginning of the session, as always, the leaders of the groups and factions could speak. The main topic, of course, was the Mindich tapes and the corruption scandal. Dmytro Razumkov even decided to present his position in an original way. He brought a toy, a Miku Karlsson toy, as one of the figures involved in this case. And supposedly Karlsson has flown away, but he needs to be brought back, and now it's up to law enforcement to handle this. The opposition declared that the government has lost the public's trust and that a complete reset of power is needed. And at the very least, Dud officially announced that he would initiate and launch a formal petition in order to collect signatures that would call for the government's resignation. In fact, the political party known as European Solidarity also came forward with exactly the same slogan and message, and it was actually they who began to block the podium, which in turn prevented today's parliamentary session from continuing as originally planned. This sequence of events led to a significant disruption in the proceedings. We can take a look at how it happened.
Petro Alexievich. So am I right in understanding that you will be blocking, correct? You won't allow the dismissal of the two ministers today, is that correct? Dear colleagues, let me just once again. Dear colleagues,
let's be honest, there wouldn't have been enough votes to dismiss these two ministers because visually there were not 226 votes in parliament. And the opposition, once again, insists that firstly, they want to hear from the two ministers and the prime minister. And they also insist that there needs to be a full presentation by the government and a complete resignation of the government. The session ended essentially with this kind of crisis, and now in Stefanchuk's office, they are deciding what to do next. There will also be a session tomorrow, and of course, the first issues on the agenda will be the resignation of the ministers. How it will turn out and what agreements will be reached, we will find out later.
Thank you. Of course, we will continue to monitor how all this ends. Our correspondent, Asena Ihor Bondarenko, reports from Parliament. Today, they were supposed to consider the resignation statements of the ministers involved in the corruption energy scandal. But the Rada has already closed the session.